The Mongolian plateau has been inhabited for over 800,000 years, with archaeological evidence showing continuous human presence since the Paleolithic period. The harsh climate and vast steppes shaped a nomadic culture centered on herding horses, cattle, sheep, and goats. Early inhabitants included various Turkic and Mongolic tribes who developed sophisticated knowledge of animal husbandry and seasonal migration patterns. The Xiongnu Confederation represented the first major political organization in the region. These proto-Mongolic peoples created a powerful nomadic empire that challenged Han-esty China, establishing patterns of steppe sedentary state relations that would persist for millennia. The Xiongnu developed military tactics combining mounted archery with rapid mobility that became hallmarks of steppe warfare. Following the Xiongnu collapse, various tribal confederations rose and fell, including the Rouran Khaganate and the Gokturk Khaganate. The Mongols then turned westward, devastating the Khwarezmid Empire in one of history's most destructive campaigns. Genghis Khan completed the conquest of the Jin dynasty and launched invasions into Europe. His death led to a succession crisis that effectively ended unified Mongol expansion. The Mongols were remarkably tolerant of local religions and customs, often adopting administrative practices from conquered civilizations. While this represented the pinnacle of Mongol achievement, it also marked the beginning of their transformation from nomadic conquerors to sedentary rulers. However, prolonged residence in China gradually cynicized the Mongol elite, weakening their connections to the steppes. Succession disputes weakened central authority, while the costs of governing sedentary populations strained nomadic institutions. Climate change and the Black Death further destabilized Mongol territories. This period was characterized by political fragmentation and gradual decline. Without the wealth of sedentary territories, Mongol leaders struggled to maintain unity among increasingly independent tribes. The Yuan dynasty finally collapsed in 1368, driven out by the Ming dynasty's founder, Zhu Yuanzhang. These groups frequently raided Ming China's borders while fighting among themselves for supremacy on the steppes. More significantly, he introduced Tibetan Buddhism to the Mongols in 1578, meeting with the third Dalai Lama. They divided Mongolia into banners headed by hereditary Mongol princes who were incorporated into the Qing nobility system. This divide and rule policy prevented Mongol unification while maintaining social stability. This religious transformation profoundly influenced Mongol society, providing new sources of legitimacy and gradually replacing shamanic traditions. Traditional pastoral economy gradually monetized, leading to debt and social stratification. Many herders became impoverished while aristocrats and Chinese merchants accumulated wealth. They promoted trade, established diplomatic immunity, and created the first international postal system. Led by the 8th Jebsendamba Kutuktu, Mongolia's highest Buddhist leader, Kak nobles declared independence and established the Bog Khanate in December 1911. However, the new Mongolian state faced immediate challenges from Chinese warlords and Russian imperial ambitions. These policies aimed to prevent the kind of large-scale migrations that had historically enabled Mongol military campaigns. The government officially supported Tibetan Buddhism while using it as a tool of political control. The Qing appointed high-ranking lamas and controlled religious education, ensuring Buddhist hierarchy remained loyal to imperial authority. Monasteries received generous endowments but were forbidden from engaging in political activities. Additionally, the Qing discouraged traditional military training, gradually demilitarizing Mongol society. The empire subsequently fragmented into 4 khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China under Kublai Khan, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Golden Horde in Russia and Eastern Europe, and the Sughatai Khanate in Central Asia. Many Mongol nobles sent sons to become monks, leading to demographic changes that weaken traditional military capabilities. Buddhist pacifist ideals also conflicted with nomadic warrior culture, contributing to military decline. Mongol armies defeated Polish and Hungarian forces, reaching as far as modern-day Germany before withdrawing due to Gedi's death. The Kak Mongols, facing pressure from the expanding Dzungar Khanate in the west, sought Qing protection. In 1691, at the Assembly of Dalanur, Kak nobles submitted to Qing authority in exchange for protection against the Dzungars. Cities that resisted were often completely destroyed, with populations massacred or enslaved. These periods saw the gradual development of Mongolic identity and the refinement of nomadic political structures based on tribal alliances and charismatic leadership. Temujin, later known as Genghis Khan, was born around 1162 into a minor Mongol clan during a period of tribal fragmentation. His early life was marked by hardship, including his father's poisoning and his family's abandonment by their tribe. Through remarkable political acumen, military genius, and ruthless determination, Temujin gradually united the fractious Mongol tribes. In 1206, at a great assembly called a Kurultai, Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan of all Mongols. He revolutionized steppe society by breaking traditional tribal structures and organizing his forces into decimal units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. Their composite bows had a range of over 300 meters, and their horses provided unmatched mobility. The Mongols also employed psychological warfare, offering surrender terms while threatening total destruction for resistance. This meritocratic system promoted based on ability rather than birth, creating unprecedented unity among nomadic peoples. The Mongol military machine combined traditional steppe tactics with innovative siege warfare techniques learned from conquered peoples. Genghis Khan's conquests began with the Western Shua Kingdom and Jin Dynasty, northern China. Under Genghis Khan's successors, the Mongol Empire expanded to become the largest contiguous land empire in history. Manji Khan reorganized the empire and launched simultaneous campaigns against Song China and the Islamic world. The Pax Mongolica facilitated unprecedented cultural and commercial exchange along the Silk Road. The Mongol Empire's impact extended far beyond conquest. Kublai Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, established the Yuan dynasty in China in 1271, becoming the first non-Chinese emperor to rule all of China. The Yuan period saw remarkable cultural synthesis. Marco Polo's accounts describe a cosmopolitan empire where Persian administrators, Arab merchants, and European artisans served Mongol rulers. By the early 14th century, the Mongol Empire faced multiple crises. After their expulsion from China, the Mongols retreated to their ancestral steppes, establishing the Northern Yuan dynasty. The 5th, 10th, and 16th centuries saw the rise of new Mongol confederations, including the Oirats in the west and the eastern Mongols led by descendants of Genghis Khan. Altan Khan temporarily reunified much of Mongolia and established diplomatic relations with Ming China. The adoption of Buddhism led to the construction of monasteries and the emergence of a powerful clerical class. The rising Manchu Qing dynasty gradually conquered Mongolia through a combination of military pressure and diplomatic manipulation. The Qing implemented a sophisticated system of indirect rule that preserved Mongol aristocratic privileges while ensuring political control. Qing rule brought significant changes to Mongol society. Chinese merchants established trading networks that made Mongols increasingly dependent on external goods. The Qing also restricted Mongol mobility through banner boundaries and prohibited unauthorized migration. Religious policy under the Qing further transformed Mongolia. The collapse of the Qing dynasty in 1911 created opportunities for Mongol independence. The Bagd Khanate represented a theocratic government that combined traditional Mongol aristocracy with Buddhist religious authority. While symbolically important for Mongol nationalism, it proved ineffective at modernizing the country or defending against external threats. This occupation sparked widespread resistance and set the stage for the Mongol Revolution. Many Mongols fled to Soviet Russia, where they encountered revolutionary ideas and military support. The government lacked modern administrative structures, a trained military, or economic development programs. The new government, dominated by the Mongolian People's Revolutionary Party, implemented radical social and economic reforms modeled on Soviet practices. Chinese forces under General Su Shujing reoccupied Outer Mongolia in 1919, abolishing Mongol autonomy and imposing direct Chinese rule. With Soviet assistance, Mongolia built its first factories, mines, and transportation networks. The Trans-Mongolian Railway, completed in the 1950s, connected the country to Soviet and Chinese rail systems, facilitating trade and cultural exchange. Baron Romang von Ungern-Sternberg, a White Russian general, invaded Mongolia in 1921 with Mongol allies, driving out Chinese forces and restoring the Bagd Khan. Yomjagin Siedenbol led Mongolia from 1952 to 1984, overseeing steady economic growth and social development. Living standards improved significantly, with universal health care, education, and social security systems established. The traditional Mongol script was replaced with Cyrillic in 1941, strengthening ties with the Soviet Union while weakening connections to historical Mongol culture. His rule combined rapid modernization with political repression, including purges of suspected enemies and forced sedentarization of nomads. The Ayutolgoy copper mine, developed with international partners, became one of the world's largest mining projects. The 1990 Constitution established a parliamentary republic with guaranteed human rights and market economy principles. This competitive democracy, while sometimes producing policy instability, has generally strengthened democratic institutions and civil society. This approach seeks to diversify economic partnerships and security relationships. Mining-driven prosperity has created new wealthy elites, while many herders struggle with climate change and market volatility. Despite ongoing challenges, the country has maintained democratic governance while achieving significant improvements in living standards and international integration. The ancient nomadic heritage continues to influence modern Mongolian identity, creating a unique synthesis of traditional culture and contemporary political and economic institutions. Urban air pollution, particularly in Ulaanbaatar, has reached crisis levels. The collapse of Soviet trade relationships and subsidies caused severe economic contraction in the early 1990s. Unemployment soared, living standards declined, and many Mongolians experienced poverty for the first time in decades. The traditional script has been reintroduced alongside Cyrillic. Shamanic practices have experienced revival, and traditional music and arts receive government support. The MPRP initially retained power but faced increasingly effective opposition from democratic parties. Despite authoritarian methods, Choibalsan's policies laid foundations for modern Mongolian statehood. Higher education expanded dramatically, producing the first generation of Mongol engineers, doctors, and scientists. However, Ungern's brutal rule and eccentric behavior quickly alienated his Mongol supporters. His presence also provided justification for Soviet intervention. Mongolian revolutionaries led by Damdin Sukbatar and Khorloogiin Choibalsan, supported by the Soviet Red Army, defeated Ungern's forces and established a revolutionary government in July 1921. In December 1989, massive peaceful demonstrations in Ulaanbaatar demanded political reform. The ruling MPRP, facing popular pressure and losing Soviet support, agreed to multi-party elections. This marked the beginning of Mongolia's transformation into a socialist state, and its close alignment with the Soviet Union. Following the Bagh Khan's death in 1924, Mongolia became the world's second socialist state as the Mongolian People's Republic. The socialist transformation began with land redistribution and the gradual collectivization of herding. Traditional aristocratic privileges were abolished, and many nobles were persecuted or executed. The Buddhist establishment faced severe restrictions, with most monasteries closed and monks forced to return to secular life. By the late 1930s, an estimated 17,000 monks had been killed during religious purges. Economic development focused on industrialization and infrastructure construction. Education reform eliminated illiteracy and created a modern school system. Marshal Khorloogiin Choibalsan dominated Mongolian politics from the 1930s until his death in 1952. The post-Choibalsan period saw more moderate leadership and gradual liberalization. The collapse of communist governments across Eastern Europe inspired Mongolian democratization movements. Mongolia's democratic transition occurred remarkably peacefully. Economic transition proved more challenging than political reform. Mining development emerged as Mongolia's primary economic strategy. Vast mineral deposits, including copper, gold, coal, and rare earth elements, attracted international investment. Political development has been marked by regular alternation between the MPRP and democratic opposition coalitions. Contemporary Mongolia faces significant challenges, balancing rapid economic growth with environmental protection and social equity. Foreign policy focuses on maintaining independence between larger neighbors China and Russia through a third neighbor strategy that cultivates relationships with the United States, Japan, and European countries. Cultural revival has become increasingly important as Mongolians seek to reconnect with pre-socialist traditions. Mongolia today represents a remarkable success story of peaceful democratic transition and economic development.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more engaging historical content.